under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the biggest little soccer podcast on the internet, Stateside Footy. And of course, we are smack dab right in the middle of the November FIFA window. God damn it, I'm absolutely excited. Before we get into it, though, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and also turn on your notification bell so you do not miss out on any upcoming Stateside Footy content. And by the way, this week is absolutely going to be jam-packed full of content. So again, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. All right. So first and foremost, I do have to get an apology out there because I know a lot of guys were looking forward to the pre-match buildup versus Paraguay and also the Paraguay live stream. But unfortunately, I was just absolutely just laid out, man. Not really feeling well this weekend. And I absolutely hate canceling content. But that being said, it's nice to know there's a few guys that have my back, and I definitely appreciate it. And of course, I'm talking about some of these guys that are chill right here in the chat. My guy Ace right here, who says, "Let's go, welcome back." I appreciate it. Of course, Soccer Satan, the coolest name, 100% on YouTube, right there. He said, "Glad you're back as well too." Of course, my guy Nate Holloway. Who says, what's up, Stateside? RIFCTID, Rhode Island FC, tough loss, waiting for next year. Yeah, it's hard. It sucks to, totally, man, totally. And then, of course, AK Shags, otherwise known as AK-47. And, of course, we know exactly where his priorities lay. And, unfortunately, it's not on the U.S. men's national team. It just so happens to be Tottenham Hotspur. And, of course, this upcoming weekend, as we return back to the club game, my beloved Tottenham Hotspur travel to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. Fuck all that. There's going to be a time and place for all that, but fuck Arsenal. Anyway, all right, so let's get after it because let's see. Before we get into Uruguay, we do have to talk a little bit about Paraguay, as the United States probably had their best win of 2025. I wouldn't say that Paraguay was toothless, but certainly they're not Uruguay when it comes to attacking prowess. But nonetheless, the United States get a 2-1 win, and that's their third win in 4 games. And when you're talking about some of these wins, and you start talking a little bit about what's happened over these last 4 games, number one, obviously, a formation switch. Something that has actually accentuated the talent of this team and not necessarily, pigeonhole them, putting a square peg into the round hole, that type of thing. And of course, when you look at some of these wins, and by the way, fuck the FIFA rating. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I hate the FIFA rankings. I think they're absolutely corrupt. And who gives a shit about the FIFA rankings? Me personally, I'm an ELO guy. And the wins came against, the 16th ranked Japan, the 28th ranked Australia, and of course Paraguay just this last weekend, who ranked number 23. And of course they drew against the 9th ranked Ecuador. And of course tomorrow, by the way, Uruguay, currently right now, I think they're 12th in the ELO rankings. Yeah, they're 12th right now in the ELO rankings. And so getting an absolute monster, monster result against a team like Uruguay, taking these 5 results and then all of a sudden bouncing into 2026. Now all of a sudden we got something. Not only is the identity there, but that being said, this is exactly how you want to go into a World Cup year, off the backs of some unbelievable wins. So from that standpoint, it was awesome. I love to see it. There were some things that I didn't like about this match against Paraguay. We're going to get into in just a second, but there was a lot of things that I absolutely loved. Mainly the fight at the end. Because one of the things that I wanted to see was whether or not this team was going to punch back. There had been so many, I guess you can say, non-committal type performances, and this dates back to Greg Berhalter, by the way, who, whether you like Berhalter or not, dude, his U.S. men's national teams were soft as hell. And one of the things that Mauricio Pochettino wanted to do was change the environment. He wanted to change the way that we approach a match, the way that we look at opponents, but most important, he wanted to see the fight and hunger back in this one. And there's an old saying, by the way. There is an old saying: fuck around and find out. That is the saying, by the way. Fuck around and find out. Paraguay tried to fuck around, and they found out. And what's interesting about this wasn't like trying to protect Christian Pulisic or anything like this. This was like, this was Alex Freeman. And all of a sudden, the bench is clear at the end of it. And, dude, that was just amazing to see, by the way. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but that was absolutely amazing to see. Of course, a red card gets thrown out. And I think it was, Paraguay's captain that took the red. And I don't think he's going to be available for Mexico, but who gives a shit about them? But that being said, it's like, when you're wondering exactly how and when and what it was going to look like, we saw a little bit. I believe we saw a little bit in the Japan and Ecuador matches. But that being said, like this was a full-on, straight-up bar fight. And it was nice to see it. It was absolutely nice to see it because I think, like, over the course of the last year and a half, I think we got used to a certain U.S. men's national team of kind of toothless. I may have thrown around the word pussy a few times because that's kind of the way that it felt. So it's nice to see that the United States in their own backyard is protecting their own backyard, which is something that, it's kind of, it's a throwback. It's a throwback to the 90s in the way that we approached Mexico in a lot of those matches back in the day. And so it's nice to see that the U.S. Was not going to allow anybody to come in here and dictate the match on their terms. And of course, that match was chippy. And it's nice to see that the United States not only won that fight, but turned around and absolutely, won the match as well too. Ace Lionel, that's exactly right. We were the bullies, 100%. Oh, by the way, he goes on to say that the FIFA rankings are full of shit. And Soccer Satan, FIFA, 100%. All right, let's do this real quick because I got to talk about this. And of course, that's Gio Reyna. And of course, this is Gio's first time back with the national team since Copa America 2024. He had, being away from the national team for a full year, you have no idea exactly what the player is going to look like. And from a standpoint of talent, it was never an issue about talent. It was either injuries or it was inconsistent club play. Not enough minutes, blah, 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 blah. But Gio Reyna was, as far as I was concerned, was the man of the match. Scores his 9th goal for the U.S. within the first 5 minutes. Of course, he adds the assist a little bit later in the match. But that being said, it was the way that, he was breaking lines, the way that he was occupying space. and supposedly against a Paraguay team that was, their identity is built around defense. And what was interesting about it, it sure looked like they conceded a lot of space. And there were times where, Gio Reyna looked head and shoulders better than anything, anything that Paraguay could have put in front of him. The interesting thing about this one, it wasn't just his spacing and his recognition; it was also his football IQ as well in this one as well too. There are a few different passes where you're kind of like, holy shit. It was, the complexity of it, the touch, and just the way that he was able to set up certain teammates. I got to be honest with you, it made me rethink this forward position moving forward. Now, with all of that being said, I'm not saying that with this performance, he has to be on the World Cup roster. That is not what I'm saying at all. As a matter of fact, I'm not even in that realm right now. I'm not one of these stands that are going to be, that are so red, white, and blue colored glasses where it's like, oh shit, he had a great performance. He's definitely got no. Take a slow roll. Because we still have this match against Uruguay still to play tomorrow, and I want to see it against better competition. Paraguay is one thing, and again, no disrespect to Paraguay, but there is something about Uruguay, and of course that's a Marcelo Bielsa, led team, defensively organized, very compact team. And now I want to see it against a team that's just a little bit better than Paraguay. And if he's able to do something against Paraguay, it doesn't necessarily have to be goals, but if he is the guy that is pulling the strings for the U.S. and it's convincing, one of the things that I can say is that what it will do, it will guarantee him a roster spot come March. And from there, obviously the sky is the limit from that. But that being said, it's like, one of the things that you can easily say against a guy for a guy like Gio Reyna is the fact that you can tell that there is a maturity about the guy, which is something that I have been screaming for at least a couple years. Because one of the I'm just going to say it right now, and I know this because I got it from a good source that his time at Borussia Dortmund, it was not a good ending, and it had nothing to do with playing time. It was the fact that he was not liked in that dressing room at all. There was an entitlement. There was an element of being a spoiled kid. Let's remember that he was handed the opportunity to go to Borussia Dortmund, and he essentially bypassed the entire U.S. developmental system to be able to be handed that opportunity to go to Dortmund. Now, if you guys happen to know that is not the true way that American players head to Europe. Usually it's through an MLS academy or their youth academy, getting into an MLS first team and then trying to make the jump from making the jump from MLS, unless you are, the type of talent like, I guess you can say a Christian Pulisic, where you can bypass something like that. But because of his dad, of who his dad is, and the relationship with U.S. soccer and the relationship that he has throughout the global game, his son was able to reap some of those benefits. And one of the biggest issues with Gio Reyna is the fact that he was completely immature. And as that Borussia Dortmund, as his Dortmund career was coming to an end, the question that I had was whether or not he was going to be able to stick it out in Europe, in a Bundesliga, in a Serie A, or a major league in Europe, or whether or not he was destined for the championship or the Eredivisie or whatever the case may be. But the reality was this summer when he was making the switch to Borussia Mönchengladbach, I came on my show and I said this probably could be his last opportunity to play in a major league in Europe, a big league in Europe, because again, we just didn't know what the maturity factor was. We didn't know if he had moved past some of the things that, kind of gave him his name over there in Europe. And the interesting thing is, I think we actually kind of saw something a little bit different from Gio Reyna. He made he did the media rounds. He was on a lot of different podcasts, and it looked like maybe he had grown up a little bit. One of the things that I wanted to see was for him to shut the fuck up, go to a team, be coachable, and actually earn your spot in a starting 11. Like, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a Gio Reyna compete. And, so far it is what it is with Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think he's, first off the bench in the 70th minute. And it is what it is. But Mauricio Pochettino brought him in. And from everything that's coming out of the U.S. camp is that he is just one of the guys. And he is amenable to coaching. And he's put, it looks like he's putting his team before his own ego, which is something that I'm actually happy to hear. And that's the thing about this. It was never about the talent. I think everybody understood from a Gio Reyna perspective, talent was there. That was it. Everybody understood it. Like, this has nothing to do with talent. It has everything to do with what's between his ears, right? Is he going to continue to be, a spoiled brat that feels like he should just be able to walk into a first team without actually earning it? Or is he going to take a deep breath, say, man, my bad, and I'm just going to go out and earn my minutes? And you know what? So far, that's exactly what it's looked like with Borussia Mönchengladbach, a team that's probably going to get relegated. But that being said, it's like, one of the things that I also am encouraged by what we saw against Paraguay is the fact that you don't think that his coaches are watching this. Of course they are. And he has that type of performance in 70 minutes against Paraguay. And for me, if he can actually have anything close to that versus Uruguay, that's probably going to show his coaches that he's actually deserving of a run of games where he's actually going to be able to be a starter. And we're gonna understand the full scope of what Gio Reyna is going to look like at the club level. God damn it, was that a brilliant performance versus Paraguay? To be the man of the match, to have a goal and assist. I don't give a shit about the what people think about the assist on that second goal. By the way, it starts with Diego Luna with his high press that was able to get that turnover. But that being said, it still is what it is. He's still a guy that ended up getting the man of the match as the U.S. Ended up having their best victory in 2025 over a very good team from CONMEBOL that's going to be in the 2026 World Cup. So congratulations to Gio Reyna. And from that standpoint, man, I hope this is, moving forward, that Gio Reyna is grateful for the opportunities, not just with the national team, but also his club team. And maybe we're actually going to see, this young kid turn into a man before our eyes. Because I'll say this, man, and everybody can relate to this 100%, that in order to be a man today, you actually have to experience failure on some level. 100%. I can speak to this in my life as well, too. That some of the best learning examples that I've ever had came from failure. Maybe I was cocky, or maybe I was an asshole at times, but when rubber hit the road and I failed at something, that is actually where I actually started to get better, is because of some of those failures. And I would probably think that if I had an opportunity to talk to Gio Reyna, and I would ask him straight up, what did he learn, or does he even consider that Borussia Dortmund spell there a failure? If he's honest with himself, he's going to say yes. And that's how as far as I'm concerned, that's actually very good for his career to actually have that. Because, when you think about not just Borussia Dortmund, but he also went to Nottingham Forest and failed there as well, too. Like, failure is the only way that you're going to get better. And from that standpoint, it looks like maybe Gio Reyna is finally fucking grown up. And it's about time. 100%. 100%. And of course, we have Greg right here who says facts. Yeah, without a doubt. He also says Dortmund wasn't a failure completely. I think it was. From the standpoint of development, maybe not, because he was able to develop in one of the best academies and one of the best teams for young players. So from that standpoint, okay, I'll probably give it that. But just from an overall success, was he able to break into the first team and just be a stalwart starter for 3+ seasons, 4+ seasons? But no, not at all. Not at all. All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the good, and that was this guy, Flo Balogun. He gets the second goal. But also, it's actually complete. What's important about that goal was the fact that it was his third goal in 3 straight matches for the U.S. as the number one. And what makes this even more significant is what happened after it as well, too, because Ricardo Pepi comes on, and Pepi has what I would consider a sitter. I mean, he had an open net and completely missed the open net, right? These are the opportunities, especially for Ricardo Pepi coming back into the national team, where you have an opportunity to put the ball in the back of the net and you don't do it. You fail to take advantage of something like that. Only makes what Flo Balogun did highlights even more. And one of the things, let me pull this up real quick. Sorry. One of the things that I will say about Flo Balogun is the fact, without a doubt, he is the number one. He is the number one starting 9 right now, without a doubt. Come 2026, you're absolutely right, Greg. Come 2026, at the start of the World Cup, he is the starting striker for this U.S. men's national team. And one of the things that I've noticed over the course of the last year and a half, when Flo Balogun came into this national team through 2024 in Copa America, I don't know how you guys felt about Flo. I always felt like it was a maturity issue for me. For me, young player, coming from a team like Arsenal, heading down to France into that type of situation. Struggled, by the way, when he first got to Monaco, was in and out of the starting 11. I don't know, man. I've just seen him. I like over the course of the last year. I feel like Flo Balogun has matured a lot. Whether it's just from a physical standpoint, growing into his body, or just essentially being, a cerebral assassin as a 9. Whether it's direct play, or whether it's like his work off the shoulder of center backs, like a poacher type of target 9. I don't know why I can't speak English right now. But that being said, it's like the contrast between 2024 and 2025 is night and day when it comes to Flo Balogun. And I think you're starting to see a guy who understands exactly what is needed for this national team. And it's something that we haven't had from this position in a very, very long time. As far as like the striker lineage for the U.S. men's national team, or I guess you can say the center forwards from this U.S. men's national team, we really haven't had a guy that has the ability to lock down this position for multiple cycles. I know some guys will say Clint Dempsey, although Clint Dempsey was an off 9. Josie Altidore, not really. There was that stretch between 2008 to 2016 where we had 4 different strikers that were kind of coming in and out of the starting 11. But that being said, it's like you look at his maturation, and you look at the things that he does for the national team, and you look at his age, and it's like, yeah, not only is 2026 a reality for Flo Balogun, but if he continues on that upward trajectory, he's also going to be there in 2030. That's the way that I look at Flo Balogun. He's going to be a multi-cycle starting striker for the U.S. men's national team. And again, barring injury. And of course, Greg right here says it perfectly. Let Flo stay healthy because he's our number one. And it's not even close. And I kind of feel that way. And don't get me wrong, I like Ricardo Pepi. I think Pepi, Pepi in front of net that dude's an assassin. But that being said, it's like the thing I like about it is you can play multiple different styles of football with a guy like Flo Balogun, and he's going to put the ball in the back of the net. Like if you want him to be a traditional striker, he can play it. If you want to play direct with Flo Balogun, you can do that. Or if you want to play wing play, where you're kind of alternating 1-2s on each side of the wing, and you want to throw balls into the box, his movement is so good that he can get out. He can get underneath it. You know what I mean? Like it's as far as I'm concerned, man. Flo is the type of striker that we've been wanting to have since the days of what's his bucket, Brian McBride. Like it goes back to Brian McBride for me. Like if you think about the 90s and you think about what we had up top, it was Eric Winalda for a while. And then, Landon was the type of guy that you can either plug as the 10 or you can put him up top. But that being said, it was like I guess you can say the evolution of strikers for the U.S. men's national team really kind of started with Brian McBride, and the fact that Brian was awesome in the air. If you wanted him to go up, for a volley, or if you wanted to play that hold up game, he was able to do it. But Brian McBride was so good in front of net. And I'm still thinking back to that Portugal match in the 2002 World Cup where he runs through a channel. And he scores that goal against Portugal, and it's like that was Brian McBride to a T. But that being said, I think about the strikers and the lineage of strikers. I don't think we've had a striker who possesses this much talent. Like me personally, I think Flo Balogun right now is better for our national team than Josie Altidore was for our national team at that time. And I know that might be a strong saying, but again, like I just think the ceiling is much higher for Flo Balogun. And the interesting thing is going to be not necessarily 2026, but 2027, right? Like if he is able to continue to be consistent, he's going to get a move out of France into a bigger league. And I actually think he possesses the type of talent that he's going to be able to excel no matter where he plays. But that being said, I look at him right now, and I look at the way that Pochettino has been wanting to play. He facilitates so many different roles as a striker for this team. And it's like, I look at it and it's like, you can tell now because, by the way, like look at the guys that Pochettino has tried to use up top. Patrick Agyemang, not good enough. Josh Sargent, unfortunately, and you guys know I'm a big Josh Sargent guy, but unfortunately it's not good enough. And Flo Balogun, if you remember, he was added to that September roster late. Because Brian White got hurt, and he stepped right in and took advantage of it. And unfortunately, guys like Brian White are never going to be back on the national team. It is what it is. Let's see. Greg says, yeah, Pepe needs confidence right now. And I would agree with this as well, too. And also, if you remember that, Pepe is also just coming back from injury as well, too. And it was kind of like I was kind of wondering whether or not Pepe was even going to be on this roster. But that being said, it's playing his way back to a full 90, multiple starts, those type of things. And I think you were probably right as well, too. It's also a confidence issue as well, too. Strikers are one of those type of positions where you need a coach that's going to believe in you, right? A coach that's going to put you out because he just believes in your ability and he reinforces that ability. Pepe almost seems to be that type of player as well, too, where he just needs that reinforcement. And those are the type of things that breed confidence. But I would agree with you 100%. And Ace, my guy, says, Flo reminds me of Lewandowski, of a Lewandowski great with the link-up play and also as a poacher. I like that, by the way. The interesting thing, though, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. He's not at Lewandowski's. I don't think he's at Lewandowski's level, but I certainly think that he could potentially get to that level as well, too. But that being said, you're absolutely right. So if you want Flo to come down to make a touch in hold up play, turn off a shoulder and then make a run into the box, he can do it. If you want to play direct and send him on a run and play a through ball through, or you want to play one over the top, he can go up and get it and hold it. If you want to play off the wings and just pepper the ball with crosses, his movement is so good that he can figure out a way to put himself in a position to get a shot on the net. Like there's multitudes of ways that you can play that Balogun is going to be able to score goals for you, and that's the thing that he has that Josie Altidore didn't have. The only guy that I can think of that actually had that same skill set was Eddie Johnson. Do you guys remember Eddie Johnson? Eddie Johnson was a real dude, man. He just didn't get a lot of time with the national team, and it is what it is. He had an up and down club career, and it just didn't necessarily work out. I still can't believe we had Brian White over Flo. I hear you, man. I hear you. And I don't think it had anything to do with the perceived the MLS conspiracy. It is what it is. I think he was just looking at certain players. And lastly, I want to talk about this guy as well too, because there were some things that absolutely blew my fucking mind. And of course, that is the center back groupings. And here's the thing. I don't know if you guys pay attention to USMNT Twitter or USMNT Facebook or wherever you get your social media. There was this running narrative from voices, I guess here on YouTube and those that are also all on X or Instagram or whatever the case may be. But there was this notion that if needed, Joe Scally can play in a back three off the right side. And I remember thinking about it, even when I was reading certain guys talk on X. I was just thinking about it. It's like, no, he can't, man. Like that to me was that conversation to me was a stretch, because Joe Scally has a certain skill set that's very good. That's very good when it comes to his natural position, and especially in, I guess you can say, in like, if you're looking at a soccer pitch in grids, like that's why, how you get box to box, right? So I guess you're talking about like when you're talking into that lower quadrant in that right-hand side, he's very good defensively in his own space. But when you move him over to center back, then it becomes something different. And then the movement changes. And listen, he's not a center back. I guess that's really what it comes down to, right? That he's just not a center back. And when you look at the way that he plays at Borussia Mönchengladbach, this year is a little bit different than we've seen over the past couple of years, because he kind of was a stay-at-home back. This year, he's getting higher up the pitch, and he's actually getting involved in some of the attacking, and he looks good doing it. But that being said, it's like this is not something that he's even doing at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's not a center back. And what makes this even worse is the fact that they brought in Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty into this camp. And by the way, I don't know if you guys have been watching, but Austin Trusty is very good. Very good on the ball. Young kid's got pace, and he's not a liability at all. He's not even close to be a liability, right? The interesting thing is that, especially when you consider the two teams that were playing in this window, and the fact that what we saw in Paraguay, when all of a sudden there's a turnover in the middle of the park, and all of a sudden, off the half turn, they quickly play it forward. And what happens? Joe Scally gets burnt, Miles Robinson gets burnt, and they score a goal. All the good vibes that we had after Gio Reyna scores the first goal in that match, and all of a sudden, within a space of 5 minutes, we concede, and all of a sudden this game is tied. But when you look at the ease in which they conceded, now granted, as the match progressed, they got better. So I'm not going to take anything away from the defense after they conceded the first goal. But on quick counters, they absolutely look, that back line looks absolutely pedestrian. But that being said, it's like one of the things that I absolutely disliked about the fact is that you're going to call in two guys that are playing extremely well for their clubs right now, and you're benching them for Joe Scally, who's not a center back, and Miles Robinson, who is, I'll give him his flowers for the October window. He played well on the right side, but that being said, it's like now you move him to the center, move him to the center of the back three. And it just didn't work. Those guys looked absolutely mid, and you can see as the game was progressing where they were trying to get overloads. And again, I guess it was the strength of guys like Tanner Tessman and Christian Roldan, who understood exactly where the ball was trying to be progressed to, and so they started eating up space. But that being said, it's like, I look at this and it's like, well, here's the thing, right? This would have been an opportunity, if anything, to actually have Scally start as the right wing back, and maybe moving Serginho Dest over to the left-hand side. Against a team like Paraguay, you might have been able to get away with it. But that being said, it's like with everything that we were anticipating heading into this window, and the fact that I was at, when I saw the center back names, and I saw the fact that Mark McKenzie, who just has not gotten a run yet, and the fact that Austin Trusty came back in, who, by the way, should be playing on the left side of a back three. Dude's a left-footed center back with pace, has the ability to has very good ability on the ball, and he's actually not a shitty passer. He's not a shitty passer either. And the fact that these guys don't even see the pitch, listen, man. I'm not coaching, but that being said, it's like if you don't have Chris Richards in, this is a perfect opportunity for Mark McKenzie to get time, Austin Trusty to get time, because at the very least you have to know exactly what you have in those players. You have to know for sure heading into 2026 what you have in those players and whether or not they're going to be able to be trusted to actually be able to get playing time down the road in 2026. Let's see. Yep. Can't play the back three. 100% ace. Let's see. Why was Chris Richards not here when he played for Crystal Palace? Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. I do. So right before the November window, Oliver Glasner came out and said how disappointed he was with Mauricio Pochettino for playing Chris Richards as much as he did in the October window, because they knew that he had a little bit of a calf injury. Fair enough. But also Oliver Glasner, if he had a calf injury, then why was he starting 90 minutes for Crystal Palace for 4 weeks between September and the October window? He was playing every match. Was playing full 90s in every single match. And then when he gets back from the October window, those 6 weeks between October and November, the only time he didn't play was when I think there was like a Leagues Cup match or whatever, but Chris Richards was also playing full 90s. So if you're worried about a calf injury, and why wasn't he protected at Crystal Palace? Like if the calf injury was legit, then why was he playing multiple 90 minutes for Crystal Palace, right? So something doesn't make sense in my mind right here. So it's like, oh, wait a second. So the calf injury was not an issue for Crystal Palace, but it becomes an issue for the U.S. men's national team. See, this is the thing. And this is why I'm like, dude, and by the way, I like Oliver Glasner. I think he's a hell of a coach, and I like Crystal Palace. But the reality is you need to shut the fuck up, because you come off looking like a complete hypocrite. You come off looking like the type of guy where you're concerned. It's hypocritical. You want to sit here and make a statement about player safety, player health, and player injury, and call out a calf injury, but yet you're playing them full 90s. Every single weekend in the Premier League, you're playing him full 90s. And by the way, he doesn't look like he's playing with a calf injury. Looks like Chris Richards was perfectly fine. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. But at that standpoint, it's like he wasn't in supposedly to give his calf a rest. But that being said, like the weekend heading into it, Crystal Palace was playing... wasn't Brighton. That was 2 weeks ago. Crystal Palace was playing at Selhurst. I want to say it wasn't Bournemouth. Anyway, he played a full 90 and looked great. Played a full 90 and looked absolutely brilliant on the ball. And it just, I don't know, man. I look at this as something where it's like whether coaches like this or not, the national teams are a part of the game. And as senior players, everybody wants to play for their national team because, and by the way, clubs should also want this as well too, because if a player is a full international and he's in your starting 11, the value of that player goes up. So if you want to if you want to sell off a certain player, you're probably going to make an extra $10, $15 million on top of what the actual market value is for that player because he's a full international. Like right now, if Crystal Palace wanted to sell Chris Richards, they're probably going to get close to 50 million pounds for that player. 100%. 100%. He's a full international. Let's see. I can see Scally more in a 4-3-3, or he has to play at a wing-back position. Yeah, 100%. Well, even if you're like, yeah, I guess a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, playing on the right side as an attacking fullback, 100%. Scally got beat bad, and Miles is in a set. Yeah, dude. Yeah, Scally got burned. But what's funny is it looked like Miles Robinson. If you remember that, though, if you remember that play, it looked like Miles Robinson got caught ball watching before he actually tried to make that move to make that block. That's why he was late. Like when you watch the replay, it looked like he gets caught ball watching for a second. And he says that Richards is a USMNT player first, 100%, 100%. But from that standpoint, when I think about this, it's like I want to, like, especially in these type of matches against two teams that are going to be in the World Cup, this is an opportunity to see Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty. And that's the thing. It's like if you felt that they're a liability, then why did you call them in? Because they're the only guys available. I'm sure you could have brought in Walker Zimmerman, or you could have brought in Jackson Reagan or whoever in Major League Soccer. You know, like if that was the play, or if you feel like they're a liability, then why do you keep bringing them in? What, so they can train? So you can get a look at them in training just to see? It's like it doesn't make sense. Like you bring them in because you have an idea that they're going to facilitate minutes and they're going to play a role. And if you're not going to do it, you know, then what was the point of calling them? I don't know. I thought that was the weakest link, was the back three. Although I will say, and again, I will repeat this, I thought that as the match progressed, I thought they played fine. I thought, you know, the ball movement from the back three to the midfield to the attacking third was actually pretty good. I thought their build-up play was good. The only thing that just was not good was that, you know, that final pass in the attacking third, essentially finishing off attacking sequences was kind of the weak link in that game. But that being said, it's like, one of the things that I like is like the humbling, what I consider humbling in real time, right? Is because there's certain personalities, I guess you can see on YouTube or on X or whatever the case may be, that was trying to sell the narrative that Joe Scally can play at right center back in a back three. That was found out real quick that that's not the case. It was the same thing with Gio Reyna as well too. When a lot of people were absolutely taking a massive shit on Gio Reyna, and within the first 5 minutes, he scores a headed goal, and it's absolutely fucking poetic when narratives can be shut down in real time in the moment. So I absolutely loved it. So that was that. And so let's go ahead and get into tomorrow. For those that are paying attention, Uruguay right now is the 12th ranked team in the world in the ELO rankings. And of course, they are sandwiched between Norway at 11 and Switzerland at 13. And quite honestly, this is equally as big as, in the last window when we had Ecuador. And Uruguay is a team that finished fourth in World Cup qualifying, for Common Bowl World Cup qualifying. Hold on real quick. Ace Leonel is asking, do I have Freeman over Scally at right wing back? Probably. As a matter of fact, yes, I do. So let's go ahead and get into this real quick. So there it is. So Uruguay qualified fourth in Common Bowl on 28 points. They actually had a very good World Cup qualifying cycle. In that cycle, they scored 28 goals, conceded 12 for a plus 10 goal differential. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker about Uruguay. Since September 6, 2024, Uruguay is 5-7-3 and only scored 11. They've only scored 11 goals, and they conceded 7 in that same stretch for a plus 4 goal differential. including in that same stretch, 10 games where they scored one or less, including 6 games that ended in a 0-0 draw. And some of those were absolutely terrible, by the way. It was, just a couple days ago that they drew against Mexico 0-0. They drew Chile 0-0. They drew Bolivia 0-0. And their wins, by the way, their last 4 wins came against Venezuela, who is not that good of a team. They beat Peru 3-0, not a great team. They beat the Dominican Republic 1-0. They only scored 1 against the DR. And they beat Uzbekistan 2-1. That's their last 4 wins. So the reality about this is that right now, of course, this window specifically, their main striker, Darwin Nunez, is not there. They're missing another guy as well too, and his name is escaping me right now. But that being said, their main goal scorers are not there. But also when they've actually had their main goal scorers, they're still not necessarily firing on all cylinders. And of course, for me, this match is absolutely fantastic because obviously Mauricio Pochettino has a long history with Bielsa. As a matter of fact, it was Bielsa that first gave him his shot at Newell's Old Boys. So these guys go way back. And of course, he was also brought him into Espanyol in Spain as well too. So these guys definitely have a history. And when you see Mauricio Pochettino and the way that he handles his teams, whether it's on the club side or on the national team side, a lot of his training methods and a lot of the things that he does is Marcelo Bielsa. 100%. It's teacher versus the student. And by the way, Bielsa actually head-to-head as managers, I don't think Bielsa's actually beat Pochettino yet, which is actually kind of amazing when you really think about it. But this is, for me, this is an opportunity, man. This is an Argentinian chess match, and when you look at the fact that we saw what they did against Mexico, but when you look at their last 5 to 10, they have not been entertaining. They have not been firing on all cylinders, and this feels like an opportunity for the United States to get over and get some payback for Uruguay. Obviously, they were the team that knocked us out in the Copa America last summer. But the reality is, I look at this as an opportunity. These are the type of matches where you want to get over, where understand that, again, their identity is the same. It's almost the same thing as Paraguay. Uruguay's identity is with their strengths being in the defense and the midfield. That is where their strengths are. But again, they're a very organized team. They're a very well-drilled team. They're very organized. And of course, this team is the direct identity of the guy that leads them. And what I will say is, Uruguay is not necessarily going to make a lot of mistakes, right? So this is going to be an opportunity for the U.S. to do what they do best, right? And one of the things that was, I guess you can say, encouraging was the fact that the U.S. were not afraid to high press. That was the one thing where you were kind of wondering what the attitude was going to be, and we saw a concerted effort to put pressure on the ball, and because of it, we were able to create some turnovers to the point where we kind of looked decent in the counterattack. As a matter of fact, that second goal came off a Diego Luna high press. And all of a sudden, that turnover came high up the pitch, and we were able to get that second goal. And so from that standpoint, I look at this as an opportunity for the U.S. to get over. And I think it's actually kind of realistic. Me personally, I think it's realistic. Whereas if this was earlier this year or late last year and we were playing Uruguay, I probably would have said that we probably get beat by 3 goals or more. Now, all of a sudden, coming off the heels of 3 wins and 4, and this team looks night and day better than what we've seen at any point under Mauricio Pochettino. This team is scrappy. This team likes to fight. This team likes to press. It feels like this team is now comfortable with each other. I think everybody understands what the expectation level is, and I think everybody understands exactly what their role is on the team. And from that standpoint, they're able to go out there and play and have fun. Right before I go, because we have about 5 minutes left, I'm going to show you my predicted starting lineup for tomorrow, and I'll give you my prediction as well too. So let's see what it is right here. Yep, the teacher versus the student, 100%. He says Mexico versus Uruguay was a snooze fest. Not a lot of chances. I would agree with you. That kind of was. And Mexico had the race squad out there. By the way, did you hear what Jimenez said about Mexican fans? Oh God, that's funny. He said, "Get humbled, Mexico." That's amazing. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. By the way, that is absolutely amazing. But yeah, by the way, and Raul, you don't say that about your home fans, man. You don't say that about your home fans. By the way, if you don't want your fans to talk shit about certain players or boo you, give them something to actually cheer, because this is not El Tree. We are seeing imposters in green shirts out there. That's not El Tree. I don't care what anybody says. All right, so here is my starting lineup, by the way, for Uruguay. And obviously, Matt Freese is going to be my number one, without a doubt. And I think, unless something changes, or if Mauricio Pochettino wants to get another look at Matt Turner, I guess. But as of right now, there's nothing that leads me to believe that Matt Freese is going to sit tomorrow. So obviously, I have Freese in net. My back three is kind of interesting, because I think this is the opportunity where Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty get in. Obviously, Trusty on the left side of the back three. And one of the things the reason why I actually have Tim Ream where he is because when you talk about soccer IQ, when you talk about his positioning, and the things that he does best, it's actually a perfect opportunity for Tim Ream to kind of be in the central part of the back three, because I think it absolutely makes sense, because he's not going to be caught out playing in a center part, where Austin Trusty actually does have the pace. Because what ends up happening is, if Max Arfston gets caught out, you have a guy like Austin Trusty that is actually going to be able to move out and protect the outside edge of the 18-yard box. He's got the pace to get back. He's not going to be able to get caught out. He can actually win a ball, and his ball movement is actually pretty good as well too. And I think Austin Trusty makes perfect sense off the left-hand side. Mark McKenzie, I like Mark McKenzie, and me personally, I just think it would be an opportunity for him to get a start off the right-hand side. And I actually don't think that his game is a liability. And I think that is the best three center backs that we have on the roster. And I think it makes perfect sense that this is what it would look like. My midfield four, Serginho Dest on the right, Max Arfston off the left, with Christian Roldan and Tanner Tessman as my two holding midfielders. I like the combination of Tessman and Roldan. Either can get forward, either can facilitate the link up play. I think both have proved they're able to do it. And I think me personally, was without Tyler Adams in camp, the fact that Mauricio Pochettino has actually trusted Christian Roldan, I think that's actually a statement that says we probably would assume that maybe he's probably going to catch another start tomorrow. But that being said, yeah, maybe. I guess it all depends, right? I guess it all depends on what the deal is with PSV, and is there any type of agreement in place where he's playing only one of the two, or is PSV fine with him playing both? We don't know that. But that being said, the only way I think Freeman starts is if there's like an agreement in place where he's not going to get multiple 90s. But me personally, I think this is the best that we have to offer. And if you want to bring Freeman in, you almost certainly can, like at the half or whatever the case may be. Like you can restrict Des Minute, or if you just want to start him, you can start him. It is what it is. But this is my project. This is what I think about. Up top as 2 10s, two on the I guess you could say the two underneath forwards. Gio Reyna, I think he starts again tomorrow. Brendan Aronson got the start in that first one, but I actually think this might be an opportunity for Diego Luna to get some minutes underneath. Diego Luna actually came off the bench against Paraguay and actually played incredibly well. It seemed to actually light a fire under the U.S. because it seemed a little bit there in the second half that they kind of got a little stagnant. Luna comes in and all of a sudden, it changes the complexity of the game, and of course we get the second goal. And of course I have Flo Balogun starting up top as well too. And as long as he's scoring goals, you would probably assume that he's going to continue to play. I will say this, that I do think that Haji Wright comes into this one tomorrow. I can see Ricardo Pepi coming into this one as well too. Same thing with Brendan Aronson and also Alex Freeman. I can see that easily happening. But that being said, let's see, the first off the bench. Who's my first off the bench? I think Aiden Morris. Yeah, Aiden Morris is going to be one. Brendan Aronson's going to be one. And yeah, I would probably say Freeman and Pepi. Yeah, I would probably 100%. So that is my projected 11 tomorrow versus Uruguay. And I think my score prediction tomorrow, I'm going for a 2-1 U.S. win. We're going to repeat the 2-1 victory. And I'm going to say goals tomorrow are going to be Flo Balogun's going to get 4 and 4. And I'm going to say Diego Luna scores a goal tomorrow for the U.S. as well too. So we're going to get back-to-back 2-1 wins. And that's the way that I see it as well too. Me personally, I think, again, this is a great opportunity for the U.S. Tomorrow, just considering of what's happening right now with Uruguay. They're not firing on all cylinders. They don't have their top goal scorers in. And the fact that this team is kind of stalling at the wrong time, right? This should be the apex in which they bounce into 2026 on the right notes. And it just seems like they're kind of flailing right now. I want to see Tolkien as well too, man. I do too. But that being said, that would be nice though. That would be nice to get, to put John Tolkien in there over Arston. That would be sweet. But that being said, it's like the way that I look at this is, you see some of them, you see like the last 5 and you see a couple 0-0 draws. You see them beating shitty teams, but also not taking advantage of teams where you expect them to absolutely dominate. It just feels like the things that make Uruguay dangerous, the speed, the ability to transition quick, their ability to press, and their ability to create turnovers and put themselves in advantageous positions, winning free kicks, and just the ability to put pressure and put pace on teams. It just doesn't feel like it's that Uruguay. So I will say that, the U.S. actually have a very good opportunity. One of the things that I want to see from the U.S. is the same thing we saw against Paraguay, starting the match on the front foot and just putting unbelievable pressure in that first 10 minutes and trying to get that early goal to get the crowd into it. And from that point, dictating the match on our terms and not allowing a team like Uruguay just to kind of push us around. Because if you guys remember Copa America 2024, that's exactly what happened. It took us a full 45 to get into that. And by the time we actually started looking like the U.S. men's national team, it was essentially over anyway. So one of the things that is differential between Pochettino and Greg Berhalter is the fact that Pochettino likes to start fast, and he likes to start. He likes to put pace and pressure on people, and he likes to let his opponent make the first mistake, and that's something that we did against Paraguay. It's the way to play. So from that standpoint, that's exactly what I want to see tomorrow, and from everything that it looks like, I would probably assume that that's the way that we're going to start as well too. But me personally, Uruguay is vulnerable. This didn't look like the oh shit match that when it was first announced. Essentially back in Gold Cup when we were kind of getting the idea of what this November was going to be look like. And I remember, I guess you can say morale between the U.S. men's national team fan base was at an all-time low. And when the names Paraguay and Uruguay came out, I think a lot of U.S. men's national teams just assume they're going to be chalking up 2 losses in November. But that being said, to get that, to get things turned around against Japan, and since that Japan match, man, this team looks something completely different. So from that standpoint, getting that 2-1 victory over Paraguay, man, that was a confidence builder. And I actually see that the U.S. men's national team, I don't know, man, a part of me thinks that I think we're going to be happy tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, obviously the U.S. versus Uruguay live stream tomorrow night, starting I think at 6:50, 10 minutes before, as we will have the live stream tomorrow. Also on Wednesday, by the way, we have our stock up, stock down, our show to go over some of our better performers during this window. Also, kind of it segues into the Thursday show, which is the U.S. men's national team World Cup roster prediction 4.0. We do it after every single window, as I let you know who my roster locks are for the 2026 World Cup, who is on the bubble, and who is the outside looking in. I do it after every single window, and from that standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see after this window as well too, because if Gio Reyna is in a position, man, where he has himself another good game, man, all of a sudden he went from the outside looking in to being on the bubble. So from that standpoint, man, it's going to be fun. So definitely join us on that. Remember to make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons and hit your notification bells so you do not miss out on Stock Up, Stock Down, and World Cup roster prediction show on Thursday as well too. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, man. I want to thank my guy Ace, who stood by tonight, man. Good to see you, man. I want to thank Greg. Good to see you tonight, Greg. And of course, AK Shags. Shags is in the house. And of course, Soccer Satan. It's good to see you as well too, man. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You guys are awesome. And I will see you tomorrow night for the U.S. men's national team live stream versus Uruguay. Man, it's going to be an absolute banger. And listen, man, I'm excited. You guys know how I feel about the U.S. men's national team, man. It's my national team. And ever since I started this channel, this is what this channel is all about, the national team. So from that standpoint, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You guys have a good night. Take care.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies, tattered flags waving dreams and